Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Part 2, Two Avatars. We are going to begin chapter 20 today. Vidur questions Maitreya. Vidur again asks about the process of creation. Maitreya briefly summarizes his earlier account of the primary creation enacted by Lord Vishnu, then describes the secondary creation of Brahma. The sages roared their approval, jumping to their feet. Some called out, "Victory to Varaha." Other praised Sutta. Many called out, "Please speak more." Sutta joined his palms and bowed his head. Verse 1, Shaunak prompted him, "Pray tell us what Swambhu Manu did after establishing his residence on earth. What arrangements did he make for saving the conditioned souls?" Verse 2, a voice rang out from the assembly, "Please tell us more about Krishna's friend Vidur. We heard how he left Hastinapur when the Kauravas ignored Krishna's counsel to make peace with Pandavas. What did he do after that?" Others objected. Surely Sutta should answer Shaunak's questions, for he is our spokesman. Sutta looked at Shaunak, unsure how to proceed. Verse 4, an elderly sage stood up. It is certainly worth learning and hearing more about Vidur. After all, even though a maidservant's son, his seminal father is Vyasadeva, an incarnation of Narayan, and Vidur was equal to his great father. He wholeheartedly worshipped Krishna and was attached to his devotees. After his long pilgrimage, he was purified by all passion. Meeting the great sage Maitreya at Haridwar, he asked him many questions. Pray tell us more about that conversation. Verses 5 and 6. After hearing the elderly mystic's request, Shaunak decided to let Sutta choose the topic. Vidur and Maitreya must have spoken about many of Krishna's spotless pastimes. Hearing about Krishna is exactly like bathing in the Ganges. It frees one from all sinful reactions. All good fortune to you, Sutta Goswami. Please relate to us any of Krishna's pastimes, which are all auspicious and worth glorifying. Devotees are never satiated hearing about him. Verse 7, Sutta, who was absorbed in remembrance of Krishna, said, "Please listen as I recount what occurred next with Maitreya and Vidur." Vidur leaned against a parijat tree whose small night blooming white and orange flowers emitted a spicy fragrance which mixed with the wafting aroma of white moon flowers and water lilies. Verse 8, he sighed how wonderfully the Lord had rescued the earth from the ocean bottom while indifferently killing Hiranyaksha. It was great blessing to be able to hear such delightful accounts from Maitreya. He inquired further from the sage. Verses 9 to 11, Holy sage, since you know matters inconceivable to others, please tell me what Brahma created after the Prajapatis. Also, how did the Prajapatis headed by Marichi and Swambhuva Manu assist Brahma to create? Did they act independently or with their wives' help, or was it both? Verse 12, Maitreya had been describing the creation process before he digressed to the history of Jai and Vijay. He said he would first summarize the topics already covered. I previously described how the three modes of nature were in a state of equilibrium known as the Pradhan. Mahavishnu injected time and the living beings along with their karmic destinies into the Pradhan by his glance, thus producing the Mahatattva or the total material elements. So this is a beautiful recap in a couple of lines here. Vidur nodded, remembering Maitreya explaining how the cosmos was created to fulfill the conditioned soul's desires, illicit desire for independent enjoyment. So the whole cosmos is created to fulfill the fulfill the illicit desire of ours to just enjoy on our own without serving the Lord. Whereas the true nature of our soul is to serve the Lord and not to serve our own selves. Forgetting their duty to serve Krishna, some living beings want to exploit his energies. Thus the Lord manifests the material nature, expanding as Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu and Kshirodakshai Vishnu. To enable the creation and to accompany the conditioned souls. Verse 13, Maitreya said, I also described that the Mahat Tattva in which the mode of passion predominates was further acted upon by the conditioned souls. Destinies to produce three kinds of false ego. False ego evolved into various groups of 5 principles. Vidu remembered 4 groups of 5, the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The 5 tanmatras: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The 5 knowledge acquiring senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The 5 working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Verses 14 and 15 now. Maitreya reminded Vidur that the gods presiding over these groups were unable to combine them without Vishnu's help. Then replied Vidur, Maitreya said, with Vishnu's help, the presiding gods combined the groups of 5 to produce a shining golden egg. For 1,000 years, the shining egg lay on the causal ocean in the lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Verse 16, I also explained that from Vishnu's navel an effulgent lotus flower sprouted. It blazed like 1,000 suns. This lotus is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. From it emerged the first living entity, the omnipotent Brahma. Vidur added the golden lotus is called Hiranyagarbha. Verse 17 and 18, Maitreya continued, inspired by Lord Vishnu, Brahma created the universe as it was before. I described how Brahma first created from his own shadow 5 layers of ignorance with which to cover the conditioned souls. These are Tamisra, Andhatamisra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoh. Please speak more about these 5 coverings. So Tamas means ignorance, so 5 kind of ignorant coverings which are covering the conditioned souls. So this is interesting for all of us, that how we have become conditioned souls. What are the particular covering our souls, which prevent us to worship the Lord wholeheartedly with total surrender. Maitreya said that they are described in the Vishnu Puran. The first Tamisra is anger born of envy. The pure soul is Krishna's servant covered by Tamisra. Tamisra, he resents his servitude and desires to enjoy independently like Krishna. It is due to Tamisra that many yogis aspire to become one with the Supreme. The covering known as Andhatamisra makes one think death is the ultimate end. Due to this misconception, people commit numerous sins to increase their immediate enjoyment, unmindful that they will have to reap the consequences in future lives. Andhatamisra is due to tamas, which makes the living entities forget their spiritual identities. The whole material universe is also called tamas because most of its inhabitants are ignorant of their identity as a spirit soul and identify with the material body. which we are very much familiar because we are in that condition. Such misguided living entities are overcome by moha, attachment to the wealth, sex, family members, and their birth country. As moha increases, it becomes mahamoha. Now, mahamoha is the greed to accumulate more. Thus, they fight with one another. Verses 19 and 20. Filling in details he had not previously mentioned, Maitreya said, after creating these different types of ignorance from his shadow, Brahma felt contaminated. He said, "Alas, I have been touched by ignorance. Even at the beginning of creation, he abruptly discarded his body, which became the night, the source of hunger and thirst. Yakshasas and Rakshasas seized it. Afflicted by hunger and thirst, they ran to devour Brahma from all sides, crying, 'Spare him not, eat him up.'" Verse 21. Brahma, chief of the gods, anxiously pleaded with them, "Do not eat me, but protect me. After all, you Yakshasas and Rakshasas are born of my body and are therefore my sons." Verse 22. Brahma created the principal gods. Shining with the glory of goodness, he dropped before them the effulgent form of daytime, and the gods sportingly took it. So the principal gods are shining with the glory of goodness. And of course, Rakshasas and Yakshasas with the vice versa. Verse 23 and 24. Then Brahma gave birth to demons from his buttocks, fond of sex. They approached him for copulation. The venerable Brahma laughed at their stupidity. The shameless demons did not relent. Seeing them close upon him, Brahma first felt indignant, and then, becoming frightened, he fled. Vidur's eyes grew wide. How did he escape? Verse 25. Knowing that only Krishna can bestow all boons and that he alone can dispel his devotees' agony, Brahma sought his shelter. Vidur asked which of Krishna's many forms Brahma approached. Lord Hari. Vidur said, "Hari is another name for Kshirodakshai Vishnu." "Is that right?" "Yes, whenever there is trouble in the universe, Brahma approaches him." "What happened next?" asked Vidur. Verses 26 and 27. Brahma prayed, "My Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons created by me under your order. Impassioned by sex desire, they are attacking me. You are the only person capable of removing one's distress in the guise of time, karma, and malefic planets. You cause suffering to those who do not seek your shelter." So distress is caused in the guise of time, karma, and malefic planets. You cause suffering for those who do not seek your shelter, but if anyone seeks your protection, you destroy their misery. Verse 28. Understanding Brahma's distress, Hari said, "Cast off your impure body." Brahma at once complied. How does Brahma give up his body? Maitreya said he does not give up his physical body, but rather his mentality. Mind is the living entity's subtle body. We may sometimes be absorbed in sinful thought. When we give up that thought, it may be said we give up the body. "Do you mean Brahma's mind was polluted when he created the demons?" Maitreya replied, "It was full of passion, which is required to create. That is why he gave birth to such passionate sons." What happened next? Verses 29 to 31. Brahma discarded passionate thoughts, became the evening twilight, a time which kindles lust. The demons imagined the twilight to be a beautiful woman. They imagined the chirping of birds returning to their nest to be the sound of ankle bells, the differently shaped clouds to be the woman's feet, intoxicated eyes, and the pink sunset to be her dress. When the sun shone through the clouds, it appeared as if imaginary girl was smiling and glancing affectionately at them. When the clouds dispersed, it seemed to them that she was shyly covering herself with her cloth. The towering black clouds looked like her dark tresses. The demons became infatuated with lust for this imaginary woman. Vidur chuckled how foolish were the demons. Then it occurred to him that all the conditioned souls who are attracted to this world's ephemeral form are equally foolish. Only those with demonic mentalities are allured by material beauty. A godly person attracted to Radha and Krishna's beauty is never beguiled by the temporary combination of flesh and blood. Verses 32 and 33, Maitreya continued. The demons praised the imaginary girl to one another. Oh, what a beauty! What rare self-control! For amid us all who passionately long for her, she moves about like one absolutely free from passion. Thinking the evening twilight to be a young girl, they welcomed her and questioned her affectionately. Verses 34 and 35, who are you, pretty girl? Whose wife or daughter? Why have you come here? Why do you tantalize us, unfortunate as we are, with the priceless commodity of your beauty? Whoever you may be, most beautiful girl, we are fortunate to see you. While playing with the ball, you have agitated our minds. Verses 36 and 37. Mistaking the clouds moving across the setting sun to be a girl bouncing a ball and other dark clouds to be her scattered dresses. They said, when you bounce the ball again and again, your delicate feet do not stay in one place. Laden with the weight of your body, it becomes fatigued and your clear eyes grow dull. Pray, braid your comely hair. Imagining the evening twilight to be a beautiful woman, they tried to embrace her. Verses 38 and 39. Maitreya entered a trance. His eyes were half closed as he sat in a meditative state. He saw a vision of Brahma absorbed in thought, chuckling to himself. Maitreya described the scene to Vidur. Meditating on his own beauty, Brahma was filled with mirth. From that meditation, the Gandharvas and Apsaras appeared. When he gave up that meditation, it became the moonlight, which the Gandharvas, headed by Vishwavasu, accepted. Verses 40 and 41. On another occasion, Brahma yawned from his lazy mood. Ghosts and fiends known as bhutas and pishachas manifested. Seeing them naked before him with scattered hair, Brahma closed his eyes. He cast off his sloth, which became the sleep, which causes drooling. That is why it is considered unclean to drool during sleep. And those who do so are vulnerable to attack by ghosts and hobgoblins. Generally, people mistake a person who is haunted to be insane. Verses 42 and 43. Another time Brahma felt powerfully energetic, and from that feeling he evolved from his navel the hosts of sadhyas, celestial beings who protect religious faith rituals. From his imperceptible form came the pitas, who receive offering on the occasions of Shraddh in their invisible bodies. Vidur was familiar with the Shraddh ceremony. For 15 days every year, those well versed in religious rituals offer oblations to the departed ancestors. Sometimes a forefather may be trapped in a ghostly body, and by the Shraddh rites he can be released from such misfortune. As a Vaishnava, Vidur did not observe Shraddh. He knew of Krishna's promise that he will personally deliver up to 14 generations in his devotees' family. Therefore, he did not divert his attention from Krishna's service. Verse 44, Maitreya's half-closed eyes fluttered. As visions appeared in his mind, he described what he saw. From Brahma's ability to disappear or he manifested the celestial races known as the Siddhas and the Vidyadhars, and he gave to them the wondrous form known as Antardhan. Vidur knew these beings could remain invisible, although their presence could be felt. Verses 45 to 48. Maitreya continued, on another occasion, Brahma admired his reflection in water. When he cast off his narcissistic thoughts, the Kim Purushas and Kinnars manifested along with their wives. Hence, as couples, they glorify Brahma by reciting his pastime. At every daybreak, another time, Brahma lay down, his body fully stretched out. He was worried that the work of creation was not proceeding quickly enough. Thinking on this problem, he became irritated. He gave up those sullen thoughts which became ferocious snakes and hooded nagas. Verses 49 to 50. When Brahma was inspired to create the Manus, he felt pleased. They would promote activities beneficial for the universe. At that time, the first Manu and his wife evolved from him. Brahma gave him his own human form. On seeing Manu, those who were created previously applauded Brahma. Verse 51, they prayed, O Creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, we are delighted to see Manu. His race, humankind, will perform ritual sacrifice and we shall be nourished by the sacrificial oblations. Maitreya opened his eyes and reflected for a few moments. Had he mentioned all aspects of the creation that had been carried out by either Vishnu or Brahma alone, he realized that he had omitted from his summary the creation of the original sages. Verses 52 to 53 now. Sages such as Kumars, Marichi, Narad and others Brahma created when he was engaged in devotional service and worship, mystic meditation, sense control and renunciation. They each imbibed one of these qualities, and this brings us to the end of chapter 20. Vidur questions Maitreya. Next time we will begin chapter 21. Sage Kardam sees Lord Vishnu. Thank you for joining me. Wish you all a blissed day ahead. Please chant and look after yourselves. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate.